So, Prod by Voodoo has asked, it's kind of random, but could you do a video on manifestation or at least include some tips on it in your future vids? And I'm actually glad this was brought up because I've been wanting to make a video on this forever. I could just never find the right time to do so because, this hits pretty deep for me. I'm huge into manifestation. I'm huge into faith, all this fun stuff. I'm huge into speaking things into existence, visualizing the whole 9 yards. And that's a huge reason that I am where I am now, just within the last 2-ish years, making almost $1 million from organic dropshipping, all while having a kid at 18 years old, starting from virtually nothing, no handouts at all, even arrested a year before I even started business for, some things we won't talk about, but, basically coming from your classic sob story from nothing to, really zero to hero. And a big part of that was, more than anything, of course, my relationship with God and, my blessings from Jesus Christ. But also a big part of that was manifestation, which is kind of what I want to talk about today is, the correlation actually between virtually like Christianity and manifestation, and how, a lot of people, when they talk about manifestation, it almost excludes God, or it's normally, God's out of sort of the conversation when it comes to manifestation or visualizing or anything of that sort. But how I've always thought about it, especially growing up and especially where I am at now and how I've always went about it, is almost treating manifestation as a gift that God's given us. So I almost like coincide them with each other. More than anything, prayer and being ridiculously blessed has gotten me here, but also using the power of my tongue that God's given me, and of course the power of my mind and visualizing and all these different things to also be able to accomplish these things with my faith. Now, this video is not going to be me preaching the gospel, but I just want to make it known that this is not me discluding God at all. And majority of this comes from my blessings, 100%. I'm just talking about how kind of manifestation and my blessings, they kind of coincide with each other. So you don't have to think, just because I'm a Christian, manifestation doesn't exist, because that's actually something God gifted you with. As Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Now, that's just something I've always held on to and known, but the rest of them, I kind of had to do my own research and compile a list here, basically correlating the Bible to manifestation. And now, of course, the Bible's always also up for your own interpretation, but this is how I've always understood it, and it's gotten me pretty far by kind of having this mindset of manifestation being the gift that God gave us. Another thing to back me up here, Mark 11:23-24, whoever says to this mountain be removed and does not doubt in his heart but believes, it will be done for him. And I think that one, more than any of them, is literally the best sort of metaphoric embodiment of manifestation itself. Basically saying, if you say something with, the utmost faith and the utmost knowing for fact it will happen, zero doubt at all, it will happen, even the most miraculous of things. And then you have Romans 4:17 here, God calls those things which are not as though they were, which, is another interpretation of like faith speaking things into existence. Now, getting into manifestation as a whole, in order for it to work at all, you have to truly believe it with every fiber of your being. If you have any sort of speculation, even the tiniest 0.001% sort of doubt towards whether manifestation actually works or not, it simply will not work. You have to have 1000% absolute certainty that what you're saying, what you're believing, what you're visualizing will come true. And now, before getting into a few ways that you can manifest with organic dropshipping specifically and some of the things I did, I want to give you just kind of a few kind of basics on how I approach manifestation and visualization. So I want you to think of a character. Now, this character is going to be you. I want you to think of you, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2-3 years down the road. So basically this gradually evolving character, but of course the character being miles ahead of where you're at now. I want you to think of how he speaks. I'm talking not just, I don't want you to, that's a big problem everybody has with manifestation. They're super vague, and that's what you can't have. You need to know down to every minor detail possible for the manifestation to kind of be as strong as it is. So when I'm telling you to think of this character and think about how he walks, think about how he talks, think about how he speaks, think about how, he thinks. I'm not saying, he's gonna be this rich guy, he's gonna be, he's gonna sound articulate. No, I need you to be playing imaginary situations in your mind on how that character will be walking in the store, on how that character is going to be getting out of his car, the things that that character is going to be saying in certain group settings, right? Maybe at, a meeting or a Zoom call, or, when he's at dinner with his family and friends. I'm talking, sometimes I'll even go so overboard, and this is kind of, you'll just naturally get the hang of this and start doing this the more and more you kind of manifest and visualize. I'll catch myself almost daydreaming fake scenario. Now this sounds crazy, but hey, it's not like I'm just some random guy in his basement broke as hell saying this. The proof is in the pudding. I'm talking sometimes I will go into full on like 10-minute daydreams of me making up fake scenarios of this character that I constantly have in my mind, that I'm constantly evolving towards. Like even the Corvette, right? Before I got it, before even the warehouse, before I got the Corvette, I'm sitting there not just thinking, oh, I'm gonna be driving around this car, maybe even having a few glimpses of me driving the car. No, I was sitting there playing fake scenarios in my mind of me getting out at the gas station with other people complimenting me getting out of this car at family events, all the way down to literally things that are even, irrelevant to the car, like me getting out of the car, walking into the house, talking to a few of my family members, saying random things to them as if I would greet them. Literally role playing in my mind as if I was already this character. And that's the type of detail I'm speaking about. Now, where it gets super strong, especially on the visualization side of things, but what you guys have to understand is they're hand in hand. Manifestation and visualization, they're the same thing. Speaking things into existence is, no different than visualizing things into existence. If anything, the actual visualization part is 10 times stronger than just saying, I'm gonna be rich, I'm gonna be rich, I'm gonna be rich. They come hand in hand. But where this gets really strong is once I started adopting all these sort of fake scenarios in my mind and all these sort of random imaginative things this character was doing, I would start trying to act as if I was him well before that ever happened. So for instance, when I thought of that fake scenario, in which these scenarios, thousands of them that I probably created in my head up until the time I got this, and now I think of more, a more evolved character, yada, yada, yada. But what you wanna start doing is after you create all these fake scenarios and you start to understand this character that you created in your mind and what this character would be doing, how this character will be acting, the confidence it'll have, the phrases it'll be saying, what your interactions with other people will be when you're this character, I started trying to virtually jumpstart that. I started trying to exactly what it seems like, started being that character before I was that character, virtually speaking it into existence. So what I would do is I would almost be in my mind playing these scenarios in the back of my head while I was still getting out of, like a 2014 Ford Taurus or, the Volkswagen Tiguan. I would be getting out of the car in my mind. Of course, I'm still in reality, but in my mind, like I'm getting out of the Corvette. I would close the door, have my chest all pumped up, like confident as hell walking into the gas station, right? As if I just got out of the Corvette. Even if you really think about it deeply, even something as far back as my old studio where, if you haven't followed me for a long time, you could look back at a bunch of my old videos, my old studio, even that in and of itself was almost like this visualization put into reality of the GTA warehouse. So my point with all this is, number one, create that character in your mind. And every day I'm talking, try to think about more and more details about that character, like almost as if you're getting to know that character to a T. And virtually the more you get to know that character, the closer you get to becoming that character. That's kind of something you have to read. I know it's kind of complicated, but some of you will read in between the lines and really understand what that means. And once you do, that's when it's all gonna start. But even throwing it way back to before, because a few months before I got this car, a few months before I got the GTA warehouse, I've already made hundreds of thousands of dollars from the internet. So let's talk about before but when I was straight up broke, when I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment that was like 800 square feet or something like that, straight up the projects virtually, living around a group of crackheads. Literally my neighbors were crackheads. The apartment down from them were crackheads. The apartments across from me were crackheads. Like I was working a dead-end 9-to-5, making like $15 an hour. I had, a few-month-old son at the time. What I was doing then was just creating the character and evolving into the character that was a few months before this character. And so that was a little bit more on the baby step side of things. So that's a little bit more relatable to probably most of you seeing this video right now, was me when I was in that position. And I was doing the same thing, it was just a different character. So instead of, the examples I was just giving you, I would be sitting there in bed, literally as I'm going to bed, thinking about it. Like I could not stop thinking about it. Like, next time I wake up, I'm gonna wake up to a bunch of Shopify notifications, right? And I was playing like imaginary scenarios of me running to my friends or calling my friends like, bro, I just got my first sale, or bro, I just made my first 1K day. I was playing scenarios every day of the moment, you know, my girlfriend was sitting there watching me. Like, I was literally like in like this little yard patch in between all these like, you know, different apartments. All these people could see me. All my neighbors was like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Some of the products I was filming outside and shit. I was sitting there in my mind, like I even remember back to, there was a product, Titan Lung. It's a super OG product. I was one of the first front runners with that. I was like doing backflips and shit for the videos, all this crazy stuff. But I remember all the way back to when I was filming for that product, and that was actually one of the first few products. I think there were one or two more before that where I had a random few $1,000s, but that was one of my, I think that was my first like 10K month product, something like that. And I remember back to when I was filming for that product, I would go outside to film for it. But the visualization and manifestation I would have was when I wasn't doing that, or when I was at my dog shit ass 9 to 5, I was literally envisioning myself out there filming, and then all of a sudden cha-ching's going off, right? And then I get to run in and tell my girlfriend like, look, it's happening, right? And I would have these visualizations of being at work and finally like going to show like my manager or something like, look, bro, that little side hustle's paying off, look, yada, yada, yada. And bro, lo and behold, thinking back to it now, probably about 75% of these like little straight up imaginary visualizations that I would just make up out of thin air, out of my head, by kind of thinking of this character and visualizing all these things, they actually ended up happening. You know, I remember running and calling, you know, some of my closest friends like, guys, I just had my first sale at like 2 in the fucking morning. I remember showing my manager one of my first 1K days, scrolling on my phone like, bro, holy shit, I'm cooking. Like, I'm talking absolute euphoria going on, and then thinking right then and there like, oh my gosh, bro, I just imagined this 2 months ago. I just imagined this exact scenario a month ago. And then from there, I kept evolving that character. And I would tell myself like, okay, like now that character is like getting used to it, right? He's no longer getting hype about his first sale. Now that character is going and doing things and enjoying time with his family while cha-chings are going off in his pocket. And now that character is sitting there at these family events and everybody asking, oh, how's your, you know, little business going? And I'm sitting there like smiling at the dashboard with like 2K for the day. And everything I just told you is the perfect example of actual manifestation. And what made it almost so easy for me, it's literally like it almost happened as if it was meant to happen, is because in my mind, that is the only thing I believed. I did not have a single doubt, not even a single inch of my being thought, this isn't gonna happen and then I'll go back to my 9 to 5. That was foreign to me. Every part of my being, as I was making up these like these fake scenarios in my mind, knew that these were gonna happen. And that wasn't me just like, oh, these will happen, who knows when, or in the super distant future. In my mind, I was like, this could be me any day now. It's gonna happen. Like, just wait. I'm gonna show everybody. All these things are gonna happen. Like, it almost was to the point, and this is also kind of one of those read in between the line things, but once you understand what I'm about to say, that's when you'll really be getting a grasp on this whole manifestation thing. It was almost like I was seeing the future, which I'm not, like, this isn't like me being like a nut job saying like I was seeing the future. I wasn't really seeing the future, but that's how much belief I had. It was almost like I was seeing the future because these things would happen almost exactly as the way I made them up in my head. All the way down to videos going viral. I'd be sitting there, kind of the same thing with the Shopify notifications. I'd be sitting there playing random scenarios, like maybe I'm at work, or maybe I'm just sitting at the house watching TV, or maybe it's the middle of the night. And all of a sudden I check my phone, and instead of those random like 3 likes, I have a video at like 30K views, 100K views, and I'm starting to get all these random notifications. I would even be internalized, and this is what I mean by like that super deep detail. This matters so much when it comes to manifestation. I would think of the feeling I had in these imaginary moments. So I wasn't just thinking of these moments, and I wasn't even just thinking of these super detailed moments. I was thinking all the way down to the emotion that I was feeling in those imaginary moments. And so what I mean by all of this, the best way to put it, and this sounds cliche, but if you take everything I just said and apply it, it'll all start to make a lot more sense. It's every bit of You have to become that person before you become that person. It's almost like you have to become that person figuratively in your own mind before you become that person literally. So all of these things mixed in with praying to God every day and including everything I'm trying to manifest, including speaking about this character, sometimes even speaking as if I am that character with God in my prayers, led me to where I am now. And it's still something I use on a daily basis to keep me finding more and more success. It's the reason one of my highest months was $170,000. It's the reason I'm like one of the top 0.001% of people who's almost made $20,000 in a single day. And that was at like 20, while taking care of a kid at a young age. And now it's the reason I have this, and it's the reason I'm so blessed, and it's the reason I was able to retire my girlfriend. It's the reason my family gets whatever they want, because of faith, blessings, and God literally blessing me with the gift of being able to manifest and visualize so easily. It's also the reason, even almost 2 years later, I'm still doing 30 to 50K a month with organic. Just last month, almost like a 40K month, one store 18K, and then, my compiled list of like that random 3K store, that random 5K store, that random 4K store. I even go so far into manifestation that I manifest myself being able to teach others well. I even include it in my prayers, in my visualizations. I think, inside the mentorship that I have with all the students I have, I'm visualizing like, oh, this student randomly hitting me up with like a 5K day. I'm literally visualizing, this fake scenario of me being on a call with a certain student and then being like, yeah, I'm about to have a 50K month. This isn't just something where you kind of do it and then things happen or whatever. You're like, off and on a manifestation. Your entire life ends up becoming this thing where you're constantly visualizing, manifesting, and speaking your own life into existence. It's the craziest superpower that human beings have that 99.9% of the population doesn't even believe in. And that's why everyone is stuck where they're at, because they'll hear a video like this or see a video like this and shrug it off and not realize that they literally have the same potential as I do, as every other random rich person on the planet does. They're just not using their own power. So with that being said, guys, I hope this video wasn't too long, but I love speaking about this type of stuff because this is the reason my life is the way it is, bro. It's awesome. So with that being said, as always, guys, if you have anything that you want me to go over organic-wise, or really honestly, even just business-wise, leave them down in the comments below. If it's good enough to do a video on it, I'll make a video just like this where I shout you out and I kind of just give you this question and answer sort of video concept. Also, especially going into Q4, it would be a travesty for me not to be able to at least mention this resource to you. I have an organic dropshipping Discord that you can join down in the link below. It literally has anything and everything you could possibly need to absolutely be printing with organic for this Q4, access to my suppliers, access to everything I have. 1 to 2 weekly group calls where I'm going over your products, going over your videos, the community. There's all kinds of free subscriptions, like the whole 9 yards. It's like your one-stop shop for changing your life with organic. So like I said, I'll leave that link down below in the description for you to join. But that's all I have for you guys today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys on the next one.